Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We're back. It's Scale School time. It's an early Scale School for some. With me today, as always, Mr. Professor Sawyer, the great Axios, the alien of the interstellar space timeline wormhole, and Mr. Oh God, names. Joaquim?
Joaquim is good.
Joaquim?
But
there we go.
Yeah, Joaquim works.
Joaquim, that's easy. I can do that one. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Yeah, as you said, like early morning, but you start school early in the morning, right? That's how you do it.
Yeah, you know. Dude, if I had to be getting up at like 6 a.m. for school again, I just, in today's day and age, I just don't think I'd make it. Joaquim is joining us from Third Web, great partner of Scale, doing some amazing stuff, helping us. We help them. Why don't you give us a small little intro about, what is Third Web and who are you?
Yeah, so Joaquim, I'm one of the founding engineers at the web. We started this journey like a little over 4 years ago, building Web3 infra for applications, and we basically try to cover everything that you need to build an on-chain app these days. So everything from wallets to high throughput transactions on the back end to account abstraction to some contracts. And lately, we've been kind of diving into the AI space. So we also developed a blockchain LLM model that we've trained with all the data that we have that has access to all our tools. And when you say agents and blockchains, you also say payments. And so we also kind of dove into the X402 movement that's been happening lately and try to get involved there and build some cool products on top. So we have a full stack X402 kind of set of tools on the client side, on the back end, a facilitator as well. That is multi-chain, multi-token, and I think has some unique features. And we also recently launched a kind of standalone product called Nexus that is meant for agents to access all these pay-per-call APIs in a very, very easy way, and for API owners to turn your API into a pay-per-call one that agents can access. So there's a lot of ground there on the Third website, but happy to dive in on anything particular.
100%. Yeah, definitely kind of you guys are at the forefront of innovation, specifically when it comes to X402. So yeah, you've been working with the Third Web guys for ages.
It's been a long time. We've been working with them. I want to say, at least I've been working with them for over 3.5 years now, 3 years, on and off doing different things. And definitely one of the most, I feel like underrated teams in the space. Just like everything just kind of works and is just like, you need it, it's there. And I don't know, I just feel like it's one of those things where I don't really think about it anymore. It's just like I'm building a new application in blockchain, and I just kind of default to all their tooling. So I don't know. Yeah, it's been a fun few years. Gotten to work with a number of their team members. More recently with Joaquim here on the X402 front. But yeah, it's been. I'm pretty excited for what they're bringing to the table. I think you guys have just done a really good job of positioning well for not just positioning well, but showcasing what can actually be done with X402 and with agentic commerce. And I think that's going to be, I think that's going to really help drive the adoption we want to see outside of just like, the meme coins and stuff. Just getting developers to actually see what's possible. So yeah, just props to you guys. It's been cool to be a part of in my outside looking in way.
Yeah, no, and it's actually getting to a point now where the infra and the tooling is getting mature enough that we even ourselves, the platform builders, get to like kind of get our head out of the platform a little bit and start building cool stuff on top of what the platform we built. And so I personally think there's lots of creative things you can do with kind of on-chain features. And these days, particularly with X402, it's just ridiculously easy to add payments to an application. It's literally one line of code. Like, you can't make it any easier. And right now it's kind of very kind of single chain, single token, almost single use case for a lot of things. And so that's what I was trying to do lately, is trying to do some fun builds to try and inspire people and show them that there's lots of fun stuff to do beyond that.
Definitely.
Yeah, many things, and that's one of the great things about kind of so many smart people being in an industry that is striving for technological advancement is you are always thinking of new things and coming up with new things, and using technology to better the experience for individuals, right? Like, that's kind of the biggest thing that I see with X402 is allowing a lot more kind of ease of use for applications, right? Whether you're looking for API calls, or even if you're doing on-chain gaming, or wanna start up your own little business and don't want to have to deal with transactions, right? It's a crazy world where we are. So let's set the scene, right? In layman's terms, for the new people joining us, what is X402?
I will give my one-liner, and then I'm handing it over to the expert. I feel like my definition continues to change. There's obviously the official definition, but I think where I've wound up most recently is X402 is a very simple internet protocol for payments. That's all it is. Does a lot of things. It can do a lot of things. It's very flexible, but at the end of the day, it's just it's a payment protocol. I'll let Joaquin kick it off with kind of the way that they're, obviously, again, it's X402 is X402, so you can only sell it so many ways. But I'll let him kind of dive into how they go about with their kind of onboarding for a developer. I think it's always nice when we bring someone on to let people get their perspective. Everyone's heard me talk about X402 for like 4 weeks in a row now, so we'll hand this one over to you if you're ready, if you've had enough coffee. If not, I'll keep it. But your call, Joaquin.
No, I mean, I think like your one-liner is spot on. My one-liner was universal standard for internet payments.
I like it.
It's universal because anyone, like any parties, can understand each other. We all talk the same language now to make a payment. That's the big advantage, in my opinion, of that. And then, it's the standard. Everybody kind of agrees on how we're going to do things. And it's an internet native payments. It literally goes through HTTP, that agreement of, hey, this is how much it costs, and then here's the payment proof. That's it. And so it's like sometimes the most simple ideas are the ones that work the best. And to be honest, like X402 is like it's an incredible simple idea, and like the implementation of it is one way. We could have done it many other ways, and I think it's that one thing that's going to be interesting for the next few years is to see how that evolves, the actual implementation of it. But for now, it's a very simple flow of leveraging signature-based payments, because we already have on the blockchain space this kind of concept of a promise of a payment almost. And it's all cryptographic based. You don't need to kind of trust. There's no way to like kind of just undo it or rug it. And X402 leverages that. So when you want to do this internet native payments, basically it all boils down to the buyer signs almost like a promise of payment and an authorization of payment. And so that can be done with any wallet. It can be done on any blockchain, Solana, EVM, Bitcoin, anything works there. And that's the little piece of data. It's just a bunch of bytes that you kind of send back to the server, and the server getting that can just verify and settle the payments. And that's it. That's the transaction right there. Once that is done, then the kind of goods can be sent back to the client, and the transaction is complete. And so it's a very, very like simple way, but for the first time in a long time, I think it's the one use case where only blockchain can do this in a kind of third party to third party. We don't know each other. We don't know your systems. You don't know my systems. We don't know each other's accounts or anything like that. Yet the payment can still be fulfilled without trusting anybody. And so that's the kind of big thing there that unlocks things like agentic payments, because for agents, you do need that trustlessness that I don't know you ahead of time. I don't have an account with you, but I want to pay you. And for applications, it actually kind of, it's interesting because you could already do payments that way with applications, but it actually simplifies things considerably because there is that standardized kind of flow, and because of the introduction of a kind of new entity, which we haven't talked about, which is the facilitator, which takes on a lot of the heavy lifting to actually do the on-chain work.
Totally.
So
Totally.
what is a facilitator then? So I mean, do you want to take it?
Yeah, for sure. I think in layman's terms, the facilitator is essentially the middleman who does all the execution and also the verification. So essentially, in specifically X402, and as Joaquin mentioned, this can kind of actually be done for anything. And I want to talk about that because I just read that tweet you posted and the light bulb is going off my head. But at a very basic level, the facilitator is an optional entity in the signature execution and verification flow. So essentially, user signs a signature saying, I will pay 1 penny for this resource. It gets sent to the merchant, aka the server, right? The back end. Now, the back end can optionally, if they want, verify this themselves and settle it on chain by paying that gas fee. Or because we live in a world where we don't really want to force merchants into having to become crypto native, they can delegate this to a third party called a facilitator who does the exact same thing. They can do the verification and they can actually do the settlement on chain, the actual sending the gas fee or paying the gas fee and executing the transaction, which once it's complete, they can send that back to the merchant who then can use that as they see fit. And if they see that it's successful, they can proceed with fulfilling the request. So essentially, I think the facilitator, for if you're a little bit more like Web3 native, you've been in the blockchain space for a while, the facilitator is almost like an account abstraction entity. You can kind of think of it in a similar way, shape, or form. And if you are, if you're more of like a traditional like finance Web2 person, I think a good example, not legally speaking, that's still TBD, but from a technical perspective, a facilitator is almost kind of like the middleman payment processor, right? Like a Stripe or someone who sits in the middle and just facilitates the flow of information back and forth. They don't actually do the payment. They're just moving information on behalf of other people. And like Joaquin said, which I really do want to dive into maybe right now, even because I'm super fired up about this. We could do everything this way. Like, it's a really interesting thought experiment of like, why are we like, we built all these crazy primitives for account abstraction. Like if 7702 is obviously the hot meta right now, but you know, a year ago it was 4337, which is, if you've tried to develop with it and use someone other than Third Web, it's really painful. It's like there's a lot going on. And it's interesting because this kind of gets us to the same place, right? You just like, a user can do anything all they need to do is sign and prove it's them, and sign that information. So I think what's really cool about this is like we had X402. X402 has been out now for what, 7.5 months, give or take. I think since the initial spec got posted, if I'm not mistaken, 6.5, 7 months, something like that. Obviously, it's been really hot in the last month and a half. Really, really like the last 3 weeks from the meme coin meta. I think it was Shafu who said that 99% of the X402 traffic was meme coin mints, which is so that's so our industry. And I think what's interesting is the downstream effect of this. I think downstream, maybe it's upstream. The effect of this, right? Like the cause and effect of this is I think we're actually finding all these new interesting primitives and ways to actually interact with blockchain that enable real apps to come online. One of them being this like application-based facilitator piece, and the other one being Joaquim's app economy, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which is super relevant because I've been trying to sell that to people for 3.5 years now on scale chains. It's actually really funny that we've finally come full circle and someone else has the same idea. But I digress. That's a facilitator, and those are some of my crazy thoughts to kick off today that I've mostly stolen.
Yeah, so I want to set some context on the facilitator kind of meta thing. So as we said, like we kind of built some demos trying to inspire people, right? So we built this app called x402.chat, and we wanted to showcase like how can we do x402 with like custom tokens, app tokens, and then different chains too. And then we're like, what's a good idea? The backstory, some alpha here, is actually the ThoWeb CEO for account. He actually found this domain, x402.chat, and he just kind of grabbed it. And then I saw it when I was in San Francisco in person. I'm like, wait, x402.chat, that's a great domain. What can I do with that? And then I kind of came up with the idea from the domain, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, so it's like, kind of Facebook wall type application. You can post to any address or ENS, a little message on their wall, you can reply. And then the twist is that to post, you need to pay in my app tokens. And the more you post on like the more popular a page, the more expensive it gets. That's kind of the concept. And then I was like, I want to show X402 for that because it was perfect, right? Like what I'm doing is effectively gating writing to my off-chain database, which is the one that has all the comments and stuff, with a payment, right? And I want it to be that payment in my own token. And like doing that exercise this way is so good to like get out of the platform work and actually try to build applications because you get a feel for things. What this came out to is that I was like, wait, like my whole app is gasless by default because all that the users need to do is sign a message to do the payment, right? Like to do that proof of payment. And then the facilitator handles all the on-chain stuff and the gas and everything. And in my app, like I only needed payment in that token and then payments in USDC to buy the token, which is also an X402. And it was so easy to build. Like it took like a couple days to build the whole thing. And like the whole app is gasless. I didn't need account abstraction. Like I could still use people's ENS, like hot wallets, like MetaMask and all that, which has always been a pain if you want to try to do gasless stuff with those, because yeah, it's like smart wallets, 437, not the same address, kind of sucks. Send 702 only works with the wallets you control, not the MetaMask, etc. But with this, it's like, wait, they only need to sign an authorization, and then I'm taking care of everything else. And so my thought was like, wait, this idea can be expanded to pretty much every on-chain interaction, right? Like, if I write my contracts in a way that they're always signature-based, meaning you don't expect the actual user to send the contract call directly. Instead, anyone can send the contract call, but it requires a signature from the user that's doing the action. right? You can expand that to anything. We actually used to have, or we still have, in our kind of NFT contracts, a mint with signature, which is super popular. It's a really like powerful feature. It's the same idea. Like, instead of making users directly do on-chain transactions from your app, you use WAGMI VM or ThoughtWeb, and then you do the RPC call right there, and then you need the gas, and then you need to encode, you need APIs, you need all this stuff. What if we remove all of that? Instead, we just have one little library to do signatures. Really, you need like sign type data. That's the only thing you need to sign like structured data. And then you send that to your backend. And the backend takes that signature and executes on chain, either via facilitator or in your backend directly. So it's like a different way of thinking of like dApps, a decentralized app. We always thought like, oh, it needs to be, on the clients, you need to call the RPC and do the whole thing there. So actually the X4 to Meta thing is no. You just do a signature and you send to the backend. Backend will handle the off-chain stuff, the on-chain stuff. And so it's kind of interesting to think about that. Maybe the next generation of Web3 apps will all be built this way. And I think it's something that's already been done a lot. Like, I know a lot of the kind of protocols for like swapping and some marketplaces, they already have this signature-based thing, like an intent. You sign an intent and then they handle it. But I think it could be generalized to like pretty much anything.
No, I agree. It's something I've been thinking about a lot because, one of the things that we've had for, 5+ years now is, gasless blockchains. And what is really interesting about this is that it functionally allows any blockchain to become gasless, right? As we've kind of stated. And so I think what's really cool is when you start to go down that path, and this is maybe my SKALE shill number 1 of the day, it's not so much about being gasless, it's about the unit economics of the chain, right? We're seeing this right now with X4 to itself. Facilitators that are getting a ton of usage inbound do wind up paying significant amount of fees, especially if they're not capturing any value. ThirdWeb is one of the only 1 or 2 facilitators that functionally has a fee enabled, right? I think it's like 0.03% or something you guys have, give or take. And so obviously you guys are capturing some of that value, which is good. It's how it should be. But even then, it is still better for you to do that execution on a chain that's 1,000 times cheaper, right? If you can, because functionally your margin is higher. You make more money. And so I think that's where it's really exciting to see this kind of like overlap between all these opportunities is the ability for people to now finally build applications across any chain that are gasless. They could functionally execute on cheaper chains, even if they're maybe built on top of more expensive chains through different schemes and extensions that we can come up with. And to your point, we kind of get the account abstraction we've been looking for without having to go and fight like 20 different frameworks and SDKs and libraries just to make things barely better than they kind of were before. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. And I think there's going to be a lot that comes out of it. I agree. I think we'll start to see, I think there's a huge opportunity maybe like for you guys and some others to probably build like an SDK that abstracts that, if that makes sense. Like if I'm building a Web3 app, like can I make a smart contract where the contract design defaults to signatures, like you're saying, and then everything is a signature based, and then the SDK just defaults to signatures. And then as a developer, I don't even think about it. It's just like it's all gasless all the time.
Yep. And by the way, it's gasless for the end user, not for the server or like the developer, right? So that's the key thing. Like, I mean, if you use a facilitator that covers all gas for you, like good for you, but that's never gonna be sustainable long term. And unless it's on a chain that's like completely gasless, which then that might be kind of the alternative. But yeah, the main thing that I was interested in is that it's gasless for the user, which makes the UX like really nice. And yeah, like the chain that you operate on still kind of very important, right? Because not only it detects your backend costs, like think of it as a AWS versus Google Cloud type thing. Like the costs will be different on your infra, and so you're choosing your chain that way too. And on the speed of execution as well, like super important, right? Like that dictates kind of how fast your application is.
Agree.
Very nice. Yeah, we've spoken a fair amount about, you know, X402 and facilitators and things like that. And, you know, one of the things that has been emerging, and I think I've seen some proposals on it, is ERC 8004. So yeah, give us a little bit of a deep dive into 8004.
Definitely. Yeah, 8004, which I think, I don't know if it's official yet, but it sounds like it's no longer going to be ERC 8004. Sounds like it's just going to be 8004. They at least changed the group name. Was originally a standard from a couple different people out of Consensus, MetaMask, the Ethereum Foundation, and then I believe there was, I think Eric from Coinbase, and I think a couple others were part of that. I don't know if it was you, Joaquin. Someone else was part of that that I'm missing that was very involved. But basically, what it is it's the framework, the open protocol for agents, right, at a very high level, and that is comprised of three things: registration, identity, and reputation feedback, essentially. And why that is so important is, you know, right now, the world of agentic consumption is primarily human in the loop and or just like human prompt based, right? Like I prompt to go do something. And we're starting to see more and more interest from both consumers, businesses, enterprises, et cetera, interested in the world of autonomous agents, right? Let's go kick something off and just let it run and go just do it. And the problem with this world is, how do the agents find each other? How do they know who's a good agent? How do they provide feedback to other agents? How do they really know anything? How do they, like, where's their identity? Where's the information? So we've seen some really incredible frameworks and standards come out from Google around their agent-to-agent framework. We've seen some other stuff come out from some other entities as well, just around the kind of convergence of how we get agents to communicate. And I think where 8004 fits to me is it's kind of like the glue that brings everything together. You can have all these different frameworks. You can have 100 different agent-to-agent frameworks from 1,000 different companies. But at the end of the day, you need a place to put all the information that everyone can agree is trusted enough, but isn't necessarily trustful, right? And the definition of that is a blockchain. And so that's essentially, I think, where it came from and where it's going is it's this layer to register agents and then manage the life cycle of information and communication around them. And then you have the overlap with X402, because the next question is, well, how do agents get paid, right? If I have an agent who's registered, how does my agent get paid? How does the other agent know what I want to get paid in? X402 handles all that very nicely. 8004 is agnostic, right? So you can use like ACP from OpenAI and Stripe. You can use AP2 from Google. You can use a whole bunch of others, but I do think we're seeing this like community convergence. There's like this big 8004 community that is arguably way bigger, actually, I think developer-wise, than X402. And then you have, I think, a slightly smaller X402 community right now. And I think we're kind of seeing them start to converge, and like a lot of overlap. People seeing they can kind of do both. A lot of teams who contributed to one or the other are kind of starting to cross over there. Yeah, we'll start there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like it's funny because it's almost like a fundamental problem on the internet that we always had. Is like, how do you trust anything on the internet. And it's probably one of the blockchain applications that is non-financial, that is one of the most suited for something like a public kind of ledger like that, because it feels like if you want to trust a system, a trust system, if it's owned by one company, any kind of like bad actor in that company kind of completely changes the rules of the game, and that feels wrong. And like to this day, this is how it's been. Like you search something on Google, the first few results, that's kind of like you kind of trust them that they're legit and not just whoever paid them. Though there is a bit of that right now. Same thing now with like these AI systems. Like, you ask them like, I don't know, what's the best like vacuum cleaner? And it's like, how do you know it's a neutral, objective like opinion there and not something that's got injected? And I'm glad that finally the problem is like so present that we need to solve it now, because with agents talking to each other with no humans in the loop, we lose that kind of like almost like human aspect of like, well, I know you, so I'm gonna trust you. I know your name. I know that you're that like I yeah. And with agent to agent, especially when they discover like a new service that they need this one time or something, they have nothing to anchor on to know if it's like trustworthy. And if there's three that do the same service, they have nothing right now to know which one to pick autonomously. And so I think it's like a really, really hard problem though to solve. Right now, there is a proposal spec and like a kind of implementation, reference implementation on test nets and all that. I'm really curious to see how it evolves. So far, it feels still very like demo-y to me. And the problem is that you can only like stress test the system once it's like there's like real things out there. Actually, one thing that we're really interested to see is people trying to break that system right now, the 8004 proposal. Because I think right now all the demos I've seen and everything is a very happy path, and it's like when I think about the internet, like the internet is wild. It's like a jungle. Like people will try to find every single way to exploit and take advantage of a system, especially if it gets popular and especially if there's money involved. So I would love to actually a little squad team to actually try to break that system, and so that we can like anticipate all the issues. Because I can already like see so many ways to break it.
I agree. I think we should do a joint hackathon called Break 8004. And we should just incentivize people to go find all the flaws. Because I agree. I mean, I think there's some that are like really obvious, like basic metadata, right? Like injecting malware into metadata. Like not really that hard, because anybody could just push up the metadata and there is no filter. And so now when you're trying to just like index all that data, are you indexing malware that's then getting automatically injected into the Postgres database for the subgraph? Like sure, you could have like SQL injection protection, but if you are storing some sort of file and that file needs to get downloaded, like most people right now, I mean, sandboxes are like a new thing, right? Like Cloudflare just launched sandboxes, and I feel like everyone's like racing to launch sandboxes now, which is only ironic because there's obviously been a few companies doing this for like a long time that are really good, but everyone's trying to launch like agentic sandboxes now to protect against this. And so I agree. I think there's probably a lot of very obvious holes and there's some probably very nuanced holes, but I think the cool part for me is that I think the 0 to 1 for creating agents is pretty bad right now. Like, it's really easy to create an X402 protected endpoint, right? I can either take the X402 middleware, put it in front of an API, or I can go to Nexus and plug it in and just be like, here's my secret, use this secret and protect it for me. It takes like less than 60 seconds to do either one. Like, it's really easy. Creating an agent is really hard, not just because the actual agentic stuff is very complicated and there's so much nuance to it, but then figuring out like where there's actually value and then getting it deployed and launched and then getting it to interact with all these other agents. And like, I think we're just like, I think there's the 0 to 1 for creating agents, and then there's the 0 to 1 for autonomous agents. Then there's the 0 to 1 for trustless agents. I think there's 3 separate paths that all have to be figured out kind of in parallel. And I don't know how it's going to play out, but I would say, I think what we need definitely is we need that like that inflection point to hit, which obviously will probably come from a mainnet deployment, which I know Marco and team were pushing for pretty hard last week. But I do think we just need to see a whole bunch of people try to register agents, and then we'll kind of see the fallout of, do agents actually work normally, or like does every agent need to be verifiable? Like, do we actually need to run them NTs? Because if we don't, there's like huge counterparty risk or whatever it is. Like, I don't know, but done rambling. I think it's a very interesting topic. And I think it'll be much more nuanced than X402.
Interesting. So X402 is just a fad?
No. X402 is simpler.
X402 is just much more pure. It's just like this pure idea. 8004, like, it's again like a very like kind of pretty straightforward idea. I think everybody kind of gets it, but it just feels much harder to coordinate and like get right. I
would say, Joaquin, I think like the phrase that got myself and maybe other people into blockchain is, it's like trusted trustlessness, kind of, right? Like, the idea of a blockchain is that it's trustless by default. You don't trust the blockchain. You trust the group consensus. Obviously, with L2s, we've kind of sidestepped that a little bit, but that's okay. We have to baby steps. But the idea behind blockchain, or at least in like a decentralized blockchain, is that it is trustless. You're not trusting one entity. There is this like trust assumption backed by mathematics or monetary cost, right? AKA mining, slashing, staking, whatever. And I think what's really interesting is to your point before, like, does 8004 work at all like on an L2? Because functionally, like, if you deploy all the agents on an L2 and the L2 is run by, Arbitrum or Coinbase or one of these entities, like, at the end of the day, they claim they're not going to do it, but they could turn around and change technically really anything. Would there be issues at the fraud proof level and like all that? Yeah. But like, could they manipulate things? Technically, yes, because like it's just them running it, right? And so I think it brings up the interesting question of like, is the solution to autonomous agents that we need to have a trusted, trustless environment? Yes or no? And I think the answer we're trying to say right now is we think yes, but there's no proof point that it's actually the correct answer.
Yeah. And I mean, even on the kind of more just taking the system and let's assume it works. So let's assume it's on a trustless kind of foundation, and everybody's kind of like rating each other on every call, etc. Like, it feels like even that is just too easily gameable.
Oh yeah.
Right now, there's no way to prevent like me from, let's say I have a image generation service, right? And it works, but then there's like 3 other competitors out there that also work. And it's like, well, I just look at how agents are choosing each one. And I see, okay, they're looking at this score. Well, I'm gonna just maximize the score however I can, right? And because it's, again, trustless, open, everything, I can just start making fake customers that, hit my image generation service and keep rating 5 star, 5 star, 5 star. And then suddenly, like, I kind of get this kind of snowball effect of like, now everybody's picking me because I kind of got ahead in the scoring system. And then the others kind of fall flat. And then it's like, wait,
Yeah.
who's judging that I'm doing something wrong there? Am I getting slashed for this? Like, is there some staking involved? Like, am I a
Yeah.
bad actor from doing that? Like, so
It's such a great point and also such a great question, because I'm going to say the thing that anybody that is like a Web3 decentralized maxi is probably going to want to just kill me.
Careful with where you're going.
Why? I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just saying, I'm just,
when people start the conversation, I'm scared.
Squad team is going to come to your house right now.
No, not that bad. This is just, I think, more of the Web3 like cypherpunk vision versus TradFi almost. But I've been talking with a lot of people about this, and I know they don't always work, but I think this is where you actually get into this interesting concept of know your customer, know your business, right? Like at the end of the day, they're not foolproof, but like in the United States, there's this new KYC system called ID.me. And if you pay taxes like a normal citizen, you can sign in, or you have to sign in with ID.me. That's what the government uses to validate that you are a like real human being and that your information all matches. And so I was talking with, I want to say, I think it was the guys from Stripe at the hackathon, or not the hackathon, at the event last week in San Francisco. And I was kind of talking with them about this, like, Stripe has all this KYC information. What if agents could latch onto it, right? Use some sort of ZK proof to say, I actually am a real entity. I'm like affiliated with this entity, but not actually have to give up the information. And you almost create this like know your agent style framework that can be a reputation layer, where you can have all sorts of different KYC, KYB, user verification, use Google Wallet identity, stuff like that to basically attach these agents to somebody. But I do believe that at the end of the day, and like I said, everyone out there who's like a cypherpunk maxi can hate me for this. I do think if you want to see real adoption from businesses, at least, you're probably going to see a couple different reputation systems take hold that are using some form of downstream like human validation or verification, just because ultimately it is the easiest way to resolve that, right? Because now if you have an agent who is buying things and giving feedback, it can be unverified until you attach it to, your WorldCoin face, ID scan, your ID.me, your Stripe business identity, your bank identity, like whatever it is, right? You have some way to prove that you're like an actual human being. And I think that as the world gets more agentic, as much as we hate KYC, and I personally agree with the idea that KYC and KYB does not solve the problems that they're necessarily trying to solve, I do think there's a proof point there that they're really important as the agentic world grows. Being able to prove that you are a human, or at least this downstream service is associated with an actual human.
Yeah, that's interesting to do every agent needs to have an associated like human
Exactly
attached with it. Either it's a KYC type thing or WorldCoin type thing or some other creative way, but that would kind of like help a little bit because the internet is just like too easy to bot. Basically, it's just too many bots, and especially these days, it's just incredibly easy. And so, like, it's already a problem. By the way, it's not just a problem with agents. Like, Google Maps ratings get botted. Like, Apple Store ratings get bought. Like it's just a common problem with any kind of score rating system that actually matters for any sort of business. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate because like blockchain doesn't solve all of it, though there is technologies that could help there to do that human proof. That's not just like full, like I need to give you all like where I live and like literally my life data there. I do think like, you know, ZK has been like a promised tech for a lot of things there, and it's been kind of this sleeping technology that, you know, kind of has this like moments and then kind of goes back to like winter mode, and like I want to see it come back full force, and I think it's going to be very useful in this agentic internet that we're building.
Agree.
Yeah.
We're in a world of some crazy potential stuff coming, you know, very soon.
Do we know, like, do we know for a fact that Falcor is not an agent? Like,
See, that's the
do we need to start like doing proofs that like we're not just looking at like a Sora 2 rendering, that you're just like rendering on the fly?
I feel like that would require a very large computer.
Worth it, right? If you're on the beach right now and you don't want to do this, you just I don't know, kind of set a thing. Also, you've seen these crazy things where you can just like kind of attach something to your, oh no, it's just a camera on your face, but then the rendering is like completely someone else. So like, I don't know if you actually look like that. I prove it.
Imagine you're actually like you're actually just a totally different person. You've been hiding yourself the entire time. That'd be funny.
Well, I had a different name up until like a month ago, so you know, who knows? Maybe
you're the one who keeps coming on here with the name Falcor. I like, man.
That's my alias, bro. You know, that's my alias. Your alias. Yeah, it's my gamer tag. No, it is. It's actually my brother's gamer tag, but I stole it from him.
That's funny. I also stole mine from someone else.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's a good way.
Yeah.
It's good ways.
Yeah. Who actually comes up with their own name? Let's be honest. Okay, I digress. We're getting off topic.
Yeah. We need to. Yeah. What were we talking about? I can't remember. Something.
So many options.
You sent me down a weird place. We've only got 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure that the people get a good grip on, you know, what Third Web specifically is doing in X402, right? You know, and how can Scale and, you know, how can people integrate Scale and X402 for the best possible X402 application? So
yeah, so one thing that we're trying to do with our X402 stack is really cover again everything that you need for applications, agents, backends, and kind of open up our facilitator so that you can do that on any chain with the token of your choice. And so I'm working with Sawyer right now to get you guys' new based chain on there with like some default currencies and everything, so you don't have to like think too much about it. Again, we care a lot about DX at the web, so we're trying to make that easy for you guys. And yeah, maybe do some little demos on that. Also, it would be interesting to see like some like cost comparison when you run facilitator on chain X versus the Scale chain. I think that would be really interesting. Performance as well. I think that's going to come like more and more as kind of every facilitator is going to open up to every chain. Like that's going to be kind of the choice that you make. And yeah, on the kind of pure product side, keep an eye on Nexus. We got some plans for it. I think we want to make this the kind of a way to like supercharge your agents with access to way richer data that you could find just by doing a classic web search. And so it's opening up all this like really premium and really like carefully vetted APIs. I think that we're probably going to go that direction there, but anyone can submit theirs, and it will go through that kind of review process there. And the idea is that we're going to make it, as you said, so you're like trying to make it really easy to one is use all these pay-per-call APIs in your existing clients, ChatGPT, Claude, etc. Like users are there. We're going to try to make that happen. Nexus already makes this pretty easy. It's just like a few clicks, especially on Claude. It's really good on Claude. On ChatGPT, you kind of have to do this developer mode thing. So like there's still some ways to go. But then the other thing that we're interested in is making it really easy to like just 0 to 1 your agent that has everything it needs to interact in this agentic kind of economy. So give it a wallet, give it a way to pay for any resource, and give it a way to discover resources as well. So that's kind of like we're trying to make that our kind of agentic products there that is all built with the web developer platform under the hood. But yeah, try to make something like a little bit more like user facing there rather than the developer facing. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. One of the things I am super excited about is being able to have the third web facilitator and just stack on this new chain, because I think most people don't realize that any token can actually be used with X402. Like it is ultimately just like basically an agreement of information being moved from A to B. To do that, most tokens today support something called signatures, right? You can essentially do signature-based transfers, but that requires an approval first. So if you're actually using like MetaMask, it's kind of annoying, right, Joaquin? Like because you do have like 2 pop-ups instead of 1. That was actually that was kind of how I got into X402, was through my whole like EIP 3009 forwarder, which I realized was just kind of a like good idea in theory, but just like people don't really want that. And so one of the things that I think is really cool is today Third Web supports, what is it, like hundreds or thousands of tokens with X402 through signature-based deployments.
Yeah. So I think like the count, honestly, is probably like something 5 to 8,000 or something like that. Like across all the tokens we have like in our kind of bridge product, and then everything that supports permit. Permit is like kind of the old school signature-based transfer, which is basically a signature-based approval, really. And so we kind of like use that to open it up to way more tokens, and that's how I did my demo as well. The X402 chat, and I was able to go on the web, create a token, and it doesn't need 3009. It already has permit out of the box, and then boom, I set that as my payment asset for my endpoints, and good to go. It's really, really easy now. And so yeah, we didn't touch on it, but that's kind of how I created like that little like internal app economy as well. So it makes sense why USDC is kind of like the top dog there, like for X402 payments. It's very predictable, it's like stable, it has 3009, which is like very useful as a kind of this one-time transfer authorization. But it does limit creativity of what you can do. Like applications, well, first of all, there's a lot of other stable coins out there that we could be using. And then 2, for X402 chat, and like we're almost at time, but like people were asking me, why do you don't just accept USDC for posting? And the reason is, how would I wanted to do initially, I did like kind of a hype thing. I did, hey, drop your ENS. I'm working on an experiment type thing. And I was able to airdrop like a few of my chat tokens to all these people for them to come and try my app. Mm-hmm. If I send them USDC, they're not going to use it for my app. They're going to spend it on something else.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you want to have control on your economy. If
Definitely.
you use a stablecoin you don't control, well, you lose the narrative, right? Like, and then the other thing that I really liked is that I didn't make it a token that you can just trade on Uniswap either, because that also makes me lose control on my narrative, right? It's like, oh, the price go up and down. It's like people just talk about that. It's like there's other ways. I made a token that's just kind of private, is closed. Only me can kind of issue it, and then I made it a fixed price using X402. It was super easy to buy it on 3 different chains at a fixed USDC cost. And then that makes me control kind of the circulation of the supply. And I get to control also the price of my token. I want to do a discount next week, 50% off. I get to do that, right? But you can't do it if you just use USDC or if you just go like full trading degen mode.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It allows real applications, right? Like that's how people build real applications. They don't build them based on token go up, go down. They build them based on the experience, and I think that's what
in-app currency, which is like literally every mobile game, everything out there.
Yeah.
Like that's how it works. And blockchain makes that incredibly easy, and X402 even easier. So,
yeah. Unfortunately, we are about at time. The last 2 things I just want to leave as just like thoughts is one thing I'm really excited about with our new chain is the ability to turn any token on Base into a 3009 compatible token, which, well, Permit does work. 3009 is a little bit easier to use for most people, just due to the fact that the facilitator is functionally designed for it for most people. And the fact that just within the Coinbase SDK, what so many people are using, it is a little bit easier to function with. So very excited for that. Gives us more opportunities to just bring 402 to more people. The second thing, which we'll maybe just have to do a separate thing that's not Scale School, just maybe a community discussion, is we need to talk about receive with authorization. Most people do not know this, but 3009 has 2 key functions: transfer with authorization and receive with authorization. I may butcher this a little bit because my research is still relatively new, but what I've found is transfer with authorization is what we're using today. It allows you to authorize a one-time payment. The problem, to Joaquin's point, it's not flexible. It can only be used for a direct payment to somebody else. Receive with authorization is, from what I can tell, something that allows you to actually inherit it within a function of a smart contract. So for example, I want to take payment in SKL tokens, and I want to swap them on the fly to USDC, and I could use receive with authorization with a 3009 compatible SKL token on the fly. It could swap into, through whatever pool, and it's essentially, it's what we call atomic, right? As long as that transaction is, as long as every part succeeds, the receive with authorization succeeds, and it's still gasless for the end user. So that's my understanding of it. I think we need to have a deeper discussion because I'm hearing a lot of people talk about that. So it might be time to think about how we can bring that to life in the maybe like the V2.1 spec for X402. But Joaquin, pleasure having you.
Yeah, thank you. Just to finish on this, we tried the receiver authorization flow because we wanted to do our own kind of like payment contract for it. But then it kind of breaks all the compatibility for every single client that expects transfer right now. So yeah, we do need the community to like move to that flow because it's actually the better choice in terms of signatures. So yeah,
for sure.
Anyways,
well
thanks for having me, guys. This was fun.
Been a pleasure. Yeah. Been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us, Sawyer. As always, Mr. Professor Yapper. Was fun. And to everyone watching and who had joined us live, thank you so much. And we will see you again next week for another episode of Scale School. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace, everybody.